The behavioral revolution in economics began in 1981, when Richard Thaler published a 7-page letter in a somewhat obscure economics journal. Richard is now a stocky 63-year-old with unruly gray hair who looks more like a bartender than one of the world's leading economists. But back then, a 35-year-old Richard posed a pretty simple choice about apples. Which would you prefer? A. 1 apple in 1 year, or B. 2 apples in 1 year plus 1 day. This is a strange hypothetical. Why would you have to wait a year to receive an apple? But choosing is not very difficult. Most people would choose to wait an extra day to double the size of their gift. Thaler went on, however, to pose a second apple choice. Would you prefer 1 apple today or 2 apples tomorrow? What's interesting is that many people give a different, seemingly inconsistent answer to this second question. Many of the same people who are patient when asked to consider this choice a year in advance turn around and become impatient when the choice has immediate consequences. They prefer C over D. When it comes to apples, Adam and Eve aren't alone in being impatient when presented with an immediate temptation. The inconsistency in these answers puzzled Thaler. Richard has an incredible eye for anomalies. While many economists ignore or paper over deviations from rationality, Thaler is drawn to them. He's made a career of trying to understand them, and he even writes down algebraic formulas to capture their essence. Why would he mow his own lawn to save $15, but wouldn't be willing to cut his neighbor's lawn even for $25? Why would his decision about whether to drive through a snowstorm to see a basketball game turn on whether he paid for or was given the ticket? Thaler's obsession with the failure of traditional economics may end up earning him the Nobel Prize. By integrating psychology into economic theory, Thaler and a cadre of other behavioral economists have remade the landscape of economic thinking. Today, the defenders of the faith in economic rationality are still dominant in economic departments across the country, but they are increasingly acknowledging the power of behavioral predictions. While economists have traditionally focused on information and incentives as the core levers of human behavior, Thaler often thinks about what he calls choice architecture. Simply and slightly reframing the context in which decisions are made can have big effects on people's behavior and happiness. Thaler is even willing to re-engineer the rules of golf. Cade Massey, a Yale business professor, played golf with Thaler soon after Thaler had taken up the game. Dick suggested that we play with a different scoring rule, he recalls. You get 1 point for every hole that you parred, and nothing for every other hole, regardless of how badly you did. The winner was the person with the most points. This simple rule change really improved my enjoyment. The problem with traditional scoring for a golfer like me is that I could screw up a decent round with a bad score on a single hole. Richard's method allowed Cade to focus more on his successes than his failures. The story also shows how Thaler is constantly trying to use what he knows about how our minds work to increase people's happiness. The golf purists out there will resist the idea that a scoring change could make golf more enjoyable, or they might insist that it wouldn't be golf anymore. But Thaler has gone after much larger fish. His impulse to tinker with the rules of the game led him to champion the Save More Tomorrow program. Thaler saw that lots of people were having trouble taking advantage of their company's 401k plans, even when their employers were willing to match their contributions dollar for dollar. It just hurts too much to see your current paycheck go down. But Save More Tomorrow lets people sign up for participation without their current or future paychecks ever declining,